Hey guys there, it's me, Humanity4 here. As promised, if you were watching my last video, I told you guys I would be coming at you this week with a brand new Aqua deck profile. This is a Glory Maelstrom deck using all the brand new cards from the newest pack that's been released. I'm proud to say this is the first English version of this deck being put onto YouTube. And I was searching the web, I couldn't really find much precedent for it, so this is what I believe how the deck should be run based on what's currently out. So feel free to suggest and comment. I own all the Aqua cards essentially, but this is what I chose to put into the deck. So I've got one Officer Cadet Erikk as our starting Vanguard. He is the Counterblast 1, put this unit into the soul, search from the top 5 for grade 3 and add it to hand. And he's very good in this deck because this deck, as a Glory Maelstrom Crossride deck, runs 9 grade 3s. So you're most likely going to get his effect off when in use, and you'll use it to search for either regular Maelstrom or Glory Maelstrom, whatever the missing component is for you. Now our heal trigger... Sorry about that, guys. Sort of started there, but yes, our 4 standard heal triggers. 3 of the draw trigger. There is 3 draw trigger and 9 stand trigger, and the reason for that is draw triggers are still important in a Crossride deck to make sure you get the components that you want. Also, regular Maelstrom's limit break is when his attack goes through, you get to draw one and retire one of your opponent's rear guards. So use 3 Valeria, which retires the rear guards, and 3 draw triggers. So it's sort of like you have 7 of that type of effect going off. Vanguard's about numbers, so you got to keep everything relatively symmetrical, or at least for me, that's how I feel like you win games. And as I stated before, our 9 stand triggers. Now, stand triggers are very important for this deck. If you know how Aqua works, the number of attacks and their order is incredibly important. So Aqua is probably one of the harder decks to use compared to something like Narukami. Not to hate on them, and I own the deck, but they're mostly just rush, and that's their only strategy. This, you gotta plan each of your units perfectly, but in return, there's great reward. So, standing your units allows you to be able to attack more, and Aqua isn't necessarily going for the big punch with criticals and stuff like that. You're just trying to wear out your opponent's guarding power very slowly. So if you're getting like 4 or 5 attacks per turn, your opponent's not going to have what to guard with, and they're going to start off their next turn with a virtually empty or useless hand. So stand triggers, like I said, this deck, very important. Now, like I said, Vanguard's a game for numbers, so I believe we are running 13 grade 1s, 11 grade 2s, and 9 grade 3s to keep everything in proportion. Each one differentiates by 2. So, start off our grade 1 lineup. We got our standard 8K Vanilla, who's always good for boosting. Our better option for boosting, though, is 3 of our what's her name? Battle Siren Dorothea, and her effect is when it boosts an Aqua Force and it's the 3rd attacker or more, it's plus 4,000, so she becomes your 10k booster. And with those stand triggers and other things going off, the 3rd attacker or more is really not a hard requirement to make for this deck, which is why we run 3 of her. She's also the best booster for the deck, because honestly, Aqua Force, they're probably their weakest lineup is their grade 1s. And you really don't want to ride anything except for Tier 9 Theo, but in case you have to ride your Dorothea, you have more options. This is my tech, which I've seen some people use. They use it in more, they use it in less. I am currently using 2 of her and 1 of the grade 2 version, just to keep all my numbers symmetrical. But so 2 Strategic Commander. She is the self-damager, which basically counterblast 1 and dump a card into the damage zone. When you're playing Aqua Force, Maelstrom and Glory Maelstrom's effects are really broken, which we'll go into details later, but the opponent will just be like, alright, I'm just going to leave you at 3 damage, or if you have Glory Maelstrom, 4 damage, until I'm ready to push for game. So, to make sure that you're able to get those plays off that you want with your limit breaks, then you use her to inflict damage. Also, another thing I like about them in this deck is you go through triggers really fast, and you're probably going to end up just dumping one of your stand triggers due to damage checks. So it's good when you be able to dump a damage and then recycle it back into the deck. I can just pick the trigger and put that back. So it's good to be able to pick the damage that you like and put it back into the deck, like triggers. Or if you're missing like a grade and your grade stuck and you happen to damage check that grade, then you can put it back in the deck to have a better chance of drawing it. So I really like her in this deck. I wish I had the space to run more. I'd probably run 3 and 2, or probably something like that was what I was experimenting with before, but she's a good card. If you don't have other cards, I would recommend filling your empty slots with more copies of her, but that's just my opinion. And 4 of our perfect guard. On to the grade 2 lineup. 4 Storm Rider Basil, who I would consider my avatar. I love the art on this guy. I know I don't have like the SP version or anything, but he's still really cool looking. And he is important because, like I said, now that we're getting into this part, the order of attack really matters. These are the guys you want to attack first. When they attack first as the rear guard, you can swap positions with the card behind it, which allows you for a whole nother attack. So what you normally do is you have this or his grade 3 version, Diamantes, in the front, and then normally something big like your 10k vanilla or an 11k vanguard that you're not, 11k grade 3 that you're not currently using. So he goes in, attacks, and then gets the swap of the card behind him for a whole nother attack. So that game mechanic's really broken. You want 4 Basil because he's what gets your combo started, push you to at least 3 damage between 1, 2, and 3. I was running 3 up until this morning because sometimes he does get a bit cloggy when you're running the 4, but you can always ride him as the Vanguard if you have to, or something like that. But you definitely want to make sure you get him, so I've changed my opinion from 3 to 4. Especially now that I'm no longer running Coral Assaults, there just wasn't enough room. Which is, it gets bonuses when it's the 3rd attack. But 3 of your 10k, these are the guys you're going to want to attack 2nd or 3rd in your grade 2 lineup. Either them or the 1 copy of the damage inducer I talked about before. But these are your 2nd and 3rd attack guys. You want to stick these behind your Basil or put them in the front and put a grade 1 behind them. So yeah, 2nd or 3rd attack. And I mentioned her briefly earlier. Tier Knight Valeria, the one who when she's the 4th attack and it's successful, you get to retire an opponent's rear guard. And she's pretty cool looking, but yeah, she only gets that when she's the 4th attack. So ideal scenario is something along the lines of, and her behind there, something like 1st swap, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. And then if you get stand triggers, you can stand for more and stuff like that, but that kind of ideal. Anywho, on to our grade 3s. We got 2 Storm Rider Diamantes. He's the grade 3 version of Basil, the one who can swap. What he has on his younger counterpart is when he attacks, he becomes 11k. Unlike our other friend, you swap, but you also get plus 2k bonus. I forgot to mention that. So 10k as Storm Rider Basil without anything boosting him isn't really enough to hit those 11k vanguards. So he can really only attack rear guards, and especially if your opponent's having like grade 3 rear guards, then it's going to be really hard to hit. 11 is going to be able to hit the vanguard, and even though it's only 1,000 of a difference, it makes a huge difference when it comes to gameplay. Now our boss of the deck. 4 Blue Storm Dragon Maelstrom. He is really cool. When he's the 4th attacker more on limit break, he gets plus 5,000 for no apparent reason, already making him a 1,600. And if his attack is successful, then you get the counterblast 1, draw a card, and retire a card. So this is the guy that you're going to always try to get off And the strategy with this deck is to stay at 4 damage as long as possible and keep abusing his effect, because he's going to draw out all your opponent's perfect guards. The other guys aren't big enough to draw out perfect guards. They'll guard it with 5Ks or 10Ks, replenishing your opponent's hand, which we talked about before. But he's going to be the guy that pulls out the big threats. And our new boss monster, Glory Maelstrom. 3 of them. What he does is when you ride him over the regular Maelstrom, he gets plus 2k, and when it's limit break 5, you counterblast 1 and he gets plus 5,000 for no reason. And your opponent cannot guard with grade 1s, which means he cannot be perfect guarded, which is very good, because then it means you're almost ensuring you're going to get an attack, seeing that he's starting off with 18k, let alone whatever you have boosting him in the back. If you have Dorothea, that's 2,800 before triggers, which is just ridiculous. Glory Maelstrom is a really good card, don't get me wrong. There are some things I don't like about him. His thing doesn't matter the order of attack, which seems to not really go with the theme of the whole entire deck. So it's good, but it's bad at the same time. Like, it doesn't really make you like think about like what order you're going into. But then it also opens up options, like if you have a Valeria, that means, and you had a Maelstrom out before, and that means you had to sacrifice one of their effects for the other. Normally, you'd probably attack with the Valeria first and hope you get a stand trigger off regular Maelstrom. Here, you can just go straight for this as the 3rd attack and then see what happens for the rest. But I like him at 3. A lot of people are saying run 1, run 2. I'm still testing it. Also, another thing with him is you can always just ditch extra copies of either him or regular Maelstrom with your 4 perfect guard, because your hand's going to be empty a lot, because you want to make sure you have all the right components on the field to make the order of attacks. So that is the deck. Sorry, it's probably a bit of a longer video. I wasn't really planning this ahead of time. I just sort of spoke on what came to my mind. So this is the first Glory Maelstrom English edition on YouTube. Tell me what you guys think. Give me any suggestions. I essentially own all the Aqua cards, and I can tell you my logic behind each and every card if it wasn't clear in this video. Thanks for watching as always, and stay tuned for more content. I'm too tired today. Both Yu-Gi-Oh! And Vanguard. This is Human Entity 4, signing out.